my friend. My name is PEtrovick, and for the past 25 years, I've been teaching, coaching, and training people how to create a better quality of life, primarily in the network marketing profession. Today, I've created a lifestyle that most people would really only dream about. But I have to tell you, my journey has not always been easy. I've had lots of ups and downs, and what I've come to realize is that we all, from time to time, need to reach out to people who have created the quality of life that we would like to, so we can figure out how to model that same thing. Now, I've created this series, and the series is called Prosperity and the Mentors. I've pulled together some of the most amazing leaders, thought leaders, entrepreneurs in the world who have impacted thousands and thousands and thousands of people with their message and what they do. Now, I know that you want to create more abundance and prosperity in your life. So my intention is to kind of go behind the curtain and get these people to share what their journey was like. Everybody comes from a different background, but I want you to pay attention to their habits, their philosophies, their tools, how they think, and what they've done to create prosperity and abundance in their life. Well, my guest today is an amazing young man. He learned how to work hard on a farm up in Idaho, and his years as a pilot with the United States Air Force and Delta Airlines taught him the power of discipline and the responsibility to others. He spent his whole life working with his church. He spent 48 years as an independent distributor in the network marketing profession. And all of these things have given him a very unique understanding of people and what it takes to create a successful life. He also worked as an instructor with Napoleon Hill's Academy, where he actually taught the laws of success and the science of personal achievement. He was personally mentored by Napoleon Hill, the author of Think and Grow Rich. Well, all of that put together, he and his partners have built massive organizations all over the world, have earned over $57 million in commissions in a period of about 12 short years. He's been married to an amazing woman, Sylvia, for 50 years. He's got 4 children, 17 grandchildren, and a great grandson now. My guest today is the international network marketing legend, Mr. Dell Williams. Dell, thanks so much for being here, man.
Thanks, Terry. Thanks for that nice introduction. Yeah.
Well, take our viewers a little bit behind the curtain, if you will. And how did you come from a country boy in Idaho to this network marketing legend who's created an amazing life and have impacted tens of thousands of people all over the world?
Well, thank you. I've been very blessed, particularly family-wise and through many of those things. But I did start on the farm, working and learned how to work. And I was motivated to find a better way instead of working many, many hours. I learned the law of the harvest, which is the key to, I think, life. And we can talk about that a little later. But I also, only way I could get out of working on that farm was go to church or to play on the high school ball team. So I was very motivated, played sports year round and never missed a church meeting, which both of those things really enriched my life and made many things possible. I learned in sports that teamwork is a key, that as you build teams, you work together, you can do so much more than you can as an individual. So those things were huge to me. I used to be out riding on the tractor and I'd see an airplane fly over and go across the sky. And I started dreaming of being a pilot. Didn't know what they did, but I'm still going down the same road on that tractor and they're going somewhere. And that's where it started. So I've always taught people, be careful what you wish because it comes true. And I was in college when I got an invite from Uncle Sam that you couldn't turn down to go to Vietnam to be in that war. And I was able, through a lot of effort that I learned from Napoleon Hill, to get out of the Army. Nothing against it, but I wanted to be a pilot, and into the Air Force, which led me to be a pilot, which led then to a profession with Delta Airlines. So I flew for 34 years and loved it. So all of those things really play parts that at the time I didn't understand. And so I had the good fortune in 1963, long time ago, to meet this amazing man that we know as Napoleon Hill. He he was 80, I was 21. And he had been told my story that I had achieved in sports, which I did through the visualization and things that my older brother taught me. If you can imagine, I was 15 years old, and he came to me, and I guess he knew I wouldn't read a book or understand philosophy, and he just said, Del, if I could show you a way to be the best athlete in your school, would you be interested? Now, as a 15-year-old, between my sophomore and junior year, that was everything. I grew up in a little, if you can imagine, 480 square foot house. My mom had died when I was little. My dad raised 5 boys in that tiny house. It was 2 tiny bedrooms, I think 7.5 by 10 feet, hardly fit a bed in there, and the other room. And there was no running water. And so I was motivated to be on the sports team. I could shower, at the school every day. I get out of some of the work. And so my brother said that I was all ears. And he told me how to do it, and that's what I did. And my performance in the sports tremendously improved, in such that I was able to get an athletic scholarship to a Division I school, which was my dream. It's the only way I could go to school. Had no money at all. So I was able to go there. That's where I met my wife. That's where I was at when, I met Napoleon Hill, all these type of things. So when I met Napoleon Hill, after I told him my story, I hadn't read the book, and he hired me on the spot. He said, I want you to teach my philosophy. We're just organizing this Napoleon Hill Academy, which this was in the spring of 63. They didn't actually start that until February of 64. But the idea was to put into the school system where we teach kids how to be successful, as well as read and write and arithmetic, which we were never successful in that. I met with many teachers, many principals, superintendents of schools. They all wanted this. They all thought it was a great thing, but they just couldn't get through the bureaucracy of getting a class on success, because what do we eliminate? PE or home ec or, things like that. And so, but then we started teaching this same 17 lessons on how to be successful, the science of personal achievement. And so when I met Napoleon Hill, he told me this after he'd heard my story. He says, very interesting story, very good story. But he said, always look at that story in the rearview mirror. Focus on going forward. Focus on what you want, or you'll have that same thing. So here's the bottom line of what he said. If you want to change your circumstances, you have to change. And he meant that literally. He meant how I thought, my actions, and particularly the habits I developed. Because habits are what we do automatically, and that's the key to success in anything, is decide what you want to be, where you want to be, and then develop by visualizing and actions the habits you want, and then it's easy. Life's easy. So that's what led me into, even while I was going through college and stuff, I was teaching the science of personal achievement. And I really admired Napoleon Hill. I have to be honest, I didn't know he was such a big person, man. He was 80 years old, and so he was, older than my father, and anyway, it was a great experience because I learned so much from him. And I want people to misunderstand. I live in Utah and was raised in Idaho, and he was in the East Coast, in South Carolina or West Virginia, where I was living at the time. And so most things back then was done by telephone or mail. So it was letters back and forth. It was phone calls. And so I wasn't there with him in the office or whatever. By then he was, of course, not in the office. He had just set all this up. But his principles are proven and true today. Today I read lots of things, and I still focus back on the Napoleon Hill's things because that's the basis. There's a lot of great books. I think Jim Rohn and Jeff Olson probably are two of the best who have taken his things that weren't students and put them into application for the masses, where they, by the slayed edge of doing things consistently over time. And that's what Napoleon Hill say. He says, people don't have patience. So he taught me a lot of great things. But that's what's led me into many things. Eventually got into network marketing out of complete necessity. Was finally graduating from college after getting a master's degree because I got into the 2-year ROTC program where I could stay. And anyway, I didn't have enough income to match my month. In the Air Force back then, going as a fighter pilot to Vietnam, it was less than $600 a month. And I had a wife and our first baby, and moved to California at Norton Air Force Base, and then I went off to Vietnam, and we just couldn't make the month meet. And so it's a very interesting story because it's what we teach people all the time. I got a phone call. Good friend, farmer friend in Idaho, just said, Del, I got a new business. You can work it part-time whenever you have a few hours, and you can make $200 to $300 a month. And I said, sign me up. That was exactly what I needed. Didn't even ask what it was, but that's how I got involved in network marketing.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So at this point in your life, Del, what does prosperity mean to you? If you could define it.
Well, that's a great question. I define financial independence as having, which is part of prosperity, as having more income than outgo. So that sounds pretty simple, but I know people who have no debt, live out on farms or in the mountains, maybe only make $1,500 a month, but it only takes $1,200 to live, and they're financially independent. So many of us have got into how much we make and how, what kind of things, lifestyle we live, and all those are very important part of prosperity. But I still go back to, that's all somebody needs to have to be financially independent, doing what they want, having no obligations, having less obligations in a month than what comes in. Now, prosperity means to me, Napoleon Hill used to define things that bring us happiness. And he listed 12 things, and number 12 was financial independence. So the other things were the type of life you live, family, friendship with associates, all those things that make you happy. Prosperity to me is, it has to be money-based because we all live in a world that most of the things we want have a cost to them. But that's what I'd say. If a person's happy, and I have my chief aim in life and my, mission statement stuff, it's all along those lines. Health, happiness, prosperity, love, wisdom, and those type of things that bring you happiness. So it's an individual thing, I'd say. I wouldn't force mine on anybody, and I don't accept some other people's, but it's one of those things we all want, and when we have it, we know it's what we want, and it's great, and we'd like to have other people have it.
Over the years, Del, has there been a morning and or an evening ritual that you followed? And if so, would you mind sharing a little bit?
No, absolutely. If people that know the Napoleon Hill story, is he was hired by Andrew Carnegie to go out and interview people for 20 years, many of them who didn't reach their goals and others who did, and write up what he called an economic formula. You could have anything you wanted in life. That's what became the laws of success. It was then taught as the science of personal achievement and summarized up in Think and Grow Rich. And basically, all of the people who were successful, 504 of the most successful people in the world, and mostly in America at that time, compared to over 25,000 people who didn't reach their goal, there's very distinct things. And that's what the 13 principles in Think and Grow Rich are. But the number one thing that separated them is those who had a chief aim in life, which is the key thing, definitive purpose. They would go over that first thing in the morning and last thing at night. Now think of that. Henry Ford, who we all know the story of Henry Ford, but for a long time, many, many months, his engineers said, there's no such thing. We cannot invent an 8-cylinder engine. And Henry Ford would say, yes, there is. Keep working. I'll pay you. Keep working. I've seen it in my mind. And so that's the key. It's people can have to visualize where they want to be. In other words, their goals, what they would be when they're realized, and tell themselves that first thing in the morning and the last thing every night. Now that's a hard thing because we get caught up in all these things. I don't always do it, but I try to, is go through. And of course, those things change over time. But every morning, your subconscious mind knows your voice more than any other voice out there. And so when it says it with power and emotion, it then goes to work to attract to you the things you need to accomplish that. And so most people are influenced by the negative, why you can't do it, instead of focusing on what you can and believing no matter what.
I love it. I love it. That's powerful. I probably know the answer to this question, but I'm asking anyways. Has there been a book or a gift that you have found yourself giving to people over the years?
Yes, of course, Think and Grow Rich back in the days, but there's many good books. But one that I like today, and I recommend to people because I find a lot of people don't know about it, the title kind of scares them, is Outwitting the Devil. And the story behind that is Napoleon Hill published Think and Grow Rich back in 1937. And the next year he wrote Outwitting the Devil, but it was never published until 2011. I remember a friend of mine, a friend of yours, called me one day and he said, Del, have you ever read the book Outwitting the Devil? And I said, no, what is it? It didn't sound like something I wanted to read. He says, well, it's by Napoleon Hill. I said, no, it's not. I know all the things he's written. I've never heard of it. And he said, yeah, it is. And so I looked it up, sure enough. So I was very skeptical about it, and I couldn't understand the reason, the title. But as I read it, it was very Napoleon Hill. It was, and he talked about a lot of the things in there to us, even though it was never put in writing. And his wife didn't want him to publish it because it kind of knocks, what schools and churches, organized religions do to our creativity. It kind of, takes that away. And so his wife was working for a big Protestant church, and she's afraid she'd lose her job. And anyway, it didn't come out in 2011, but it's if you read it, I think it's like so applicable today.
It so is. Yeah, very much so. Very much so. Okay, here's a fun question for you, Del. Has there been a purchase of $100 or less in the last 6 months that has had a positive impact on your overall quality of life?
$100 in the last 6 months. Let's see. That is a good question. But probably not one I want to share. It probably wouldn't make sense to people, but most of those things would deal with family. That's where most of my happiness and things are today. And there's 30 of us now, with 4 kids, and as you described there, now a little great grandson. That's and so there are things like that we're using that kind of puts together pictures and stories from a long time, that reminds us. I just had my 90-year-old brother pass away, and he's the one that introduced me to Napoleon Hill. And as I got going through things like that, there's so many things that I just forgotten that were absolutely bring me to tears. And so some of those things, the things that touch my emotions, that make me be so appreciative and grateful to people around me and stuff, those are the type of things I think are most valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's shift the conversation a little bit more towards business success and money. As you were coming up through the ranks and you struggled with maybe prosperity or abundant thinking, how did you work your way through that process?
That's a great question, Terry. I think that the thing that I always admired about people who had become successful is they kept grounded. They never forgot who they were, where they came from. So, as I got to the point where I could maybe go buy a new big home or a lot of those things. I mean, we have a ranch in Idaho. We have a very nice home there. We love being up there. But I'm sitting in the home that we bought 36 years ago. And many times we went out and looked at homes, and and I would remember how important it is for me to go back to the ranch I grew up on, the farm that we've now made into a ranch, and the feeling it gave me of security and the memories it brought back. And we've lived in this house since my oldest daughter was just going into junior high. And so all my 4 kids were raised here. We have a swimming pool that all the high school team parties were at. Every time I go to sell it, my kids say, no, that's, it's home. And so that's the type of thing that's really brought me the most happiness, is not getting caught up with what I've seen a lot of people with a lot of money do. And I don't judge them in any way if that's what makes them happy. But I found that, we've remodeled this home and put a lot of money into it. We could have bought it, but we love being here. So we still, twice a month, all the family, at least that can come, we have dinner, we do all those type of things together. And so our home here, we have a nice location. We still, even though they've built thousands of homes around us and stuff, we have the hills behind us. We have our tennis court and our things that are kind of private. So that's more important to me. Now that's, it's what makes people happy. But I've seen so many people work with athletes, with people that's become very successful in politics, people have in entertainment, and they get get this fame and fortune, so to speak, which I never felt I've had. The things you say about me sometimes others do, I don't feel that's me. I'm still a kid off the farm. And I mean that sincerely. I just kind of cringe sometimes. I acknowledge what got me there and what possibility that can help for other people, but it's a feeling more than it is belongings, if that makes sense.
So let me ask this question. At some point, I have to believe in this journey, you had some limited beliefs. Could you accomplish what you wanted to accomplish? How did you overcome that thinking to push forward and create what you've created?
It goes. I don't mean to keep going back to Point Hill things, but in the key 3 or 4 things, principles of Think and Grow Rich, one is called, it's what we would call today as positive affirmations. It's auto-suggestion. I believe that the creator of this world created all of us to be successful. And I believe he created a way, and I believe that Napoleon Hill was able to discover that through all that study of all these people. And it basically comes down to 2 things. He stated, and I verified, and I believe it's totally true, that the human race was created to have dominion over the earth. That means not in a negative, way, but everything was here for the human race. And we were created to have 2 things separate than all the other living species. Number 1 is imagination. Number 2 is choice. And so I don't always do it, but whenever I have challenges or struggling, as you said, I go back to, okay, what it is I want. See, the Napoleon Hill philosophy says, and I believe it's true, is that anybody can have success. They have to define it. They have to believe it. They have to have faith in it. And then they have to tell themselves every morning and every night to remember that's what they want. And everything around us is negative. There was a research done back in the 90s in Southern California, and I believe it's true today even more so. And it said that 9 out of 10 people, 92% of the time, their dominant thought was about things they didn't want. In other words, about their fears and why they can't. So I find people are always looking why they can't do something and still why they can't. And the key is the law of the harvest, because you don't plant today and harvest tomorrow. And certain plants, we see that in nature, takes a lot longer to mature. And to be successful, you have to prepare the soil, get good seed, plant it, and then the nourishment for the possibility of a harvest. And even as a farmer, we would have times we did all that, and just before we were to harvest, I remember one time we got the combine out, and we had a great crop of wheat, and it was going to be, and as my dad started on that first, this hailstorm come through and just wiped us out. Mm. And as Jim Rohn tells very nice in his story, he said, so what do farmers do? What do? We keep on sowing. We planted the next year, hoping for a crop, and we got a good crop. And so that's the key, is everything, there's a lot of opposition. I mean, there's nothing in life worth achieving without opposition. And so how do we over it? Then we have the ability to imagine how it'll be when we get there. And we also have the choice. So it's all the other animals and things in the world, they react. They just react. Well, we react. David Bird, as I know you're aware of, he teaches it's okay to do that for 5 minutes and then be proactive and what are you going to do about it? Because Napoleon Hill taught that in every temporary setback, he wouldn't accept defeat. Every temporary setback is the seed of an equal or greater opportunity. And I believe that. Everything I look at, even my last 25 years in the industry, every time something difficult's happened, been really hard and disappointing, if I look, there's a seed of opportunity that I would never have seen if it hadn't happened. Helen Keller has a great statement. She says that as a door closes, another door of happiness opens. But most of us are so focused on the closed door, we don't see the open door. And I see that all the time. I see people who they just dwell and, oh, how terrible life is and things. And they think they're positive, but their thoughts just turn to that negative. And it's so easy. Everything around us is negative. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's
that's powerful.
That's a key thing in things, because I don't know of anyone who life is really easy. They may look at it, but if you really, I've served a lot in my church. I get to know people and stuff. Even the very successful people and stuff, when you get down, they have some tremendous challenges. They're just not as visual as some of the others.
Right. Thanks for sharing that. We talked a little bit about this, but I want to ask the question again. How important has meditation and visualization been in the prosperity building process for you?
It's everything to me. Meditation and visualizations where, you can kind of calm down, push the world away. And if you use it right, as I did in sports when I first grew up, or to become a pilot, or any of the things I've done, and Napoleon Hill explained to me why that was so important, is that's where it all starts. If you can't visualize it and see yourself there, you'll never get there. I firmly believe that everything that's created physically is created first mentally or spiritually. And that's what you do with your imagination, and you're developing this habit of however you tell yourself that you can and you will, and you keep doing it. I like David Bird's things, because he's brought it to a business where it's high payoff activities. You decide what those are, and you have a way of measuring those with key performance indicators. And as you do that, you can measure how you're doing against what it is you want. And those are hard, boring things to do, but they're what makes the difference to put the energy, I guess, into reaching your goals and the things you want.
Right. What advice would you give somebody, Dale, who is stuck financially? Perhaps they think they're too old, or they can't change their future, or they've tried to, go down the entrepreneurial path and haven't really had much success at this point in their life.
One of the things I had to learn, because I've been through that a lot of times, is that if you got food poisoning, I asked people, you had food poisoning? Yes. Well, did you quit eating or just not at that place? And so maybe it's a time to reevaluate. Maybe I'm in the wrong situation or wrong industry or whatever it is. And then again, go back to your creative mind of visualizing what you want, maybe studying, reading up on things, but then get this this plan. I love what David Bird teaches about a 5-year vision statement, and that's not a goal. It's just, what if everything fell in place for me? Where will I be in 5 years? Just dream. Let those start dreams. And then pick a couple of those and put them into yearly goals. monthly plans and daily activities. That's where it happens. It happens daily. But the dream started 5 years from now, or, if everything was right. And then you got to go, what do I do this year to get me there? The biggest problem is we live in a world of instant gratification. Everybody wants it now, and things just don't work that way. I've probably got myself in not as good a condition as I want physically. So I'm back to, a plan of how to get there. And as much as you want, you can't go to the gym 3 or 4 times and look like Atlas. It takes a long time, and you may never get there, but it's that consistency daily over a long period of time that makes the difference. And most people just don't want it. They want something for nothing or something faster because somebody else got it looked like. And that's the law of opposition to stop us from ever getting there. So it's just self-determination. My father used to say, of all the virtues, self-discipline was the best, because none of the others are possible without having self-discipline. And unfortunately or fortunately, that's the answer to most things. I see most people, if you look at sports, look at soccer or baseball or basketball, any sport that you like, the masses are self-eliminators. Everybody plays soccer in an area where they play soccer when they're kids. Everybody there. And then when the coach starts saying, you have to come to practice 3 times a week. 3 times a week? I can't do that. Or you have to do all these drills. I just want to shoot the ball. I don't want to pass and block, And so people eliminate themselves. By the time they get in high school, then you got to try out, and you got to be pretty good. And if you're not eliminated by the coach, people eliminate themselves. I remember 2-a-days in football every year. Man, people would quit because it was hard. And I couldn't wait to get through them. But I always looked at the glory of being on the team and what it would be like, and so I could put up with it. But you have to have that mentality to get through the difficult times because they're there. Yeah.
If somebody is stuck in a career, let's say, and they've settled for the life that they have, and they have this glimpse that they could and should and would love to do more, be more, have more, what advice would you give that person?
Well, one of the things I've always taught is what's called a SMART goal. And of course, SMART stands for certain things. It needs to be very specific. The more specific it is, see, people want to have a garden, but I've never been able to find where you can buy vegetable seeds. You can buy peas and corn and tomatoes, but you can't just buy vegetables. And so it needs to be very, very specific. The more specific it is, the sooner you can get to wherever that is. So that's where decision comes in. That's where we have to make choices, because it's not always clear. Secondly, if a SMART goal is measurable. So you have to be able to measure, am I progressing or not? Why not either change or maybe do something else? I mean, people all the time are dreamers. There's a lot of dreamers, but most people are really wishers. They're not, really committed to it. So measurable. A is it achievable? Is it achievable for me? If I'm blind and I want to be a golfer, probably not impossible. Vision's a pretty important part of it. Although I have golf with a blind golfer, and the guy was pretty dang good. Because he could really visualize. It was just if we lined him up right or not. But so, and then R is it realistic, and T is time. Now, David Bird used to give those calls for people, that he would go give them a half-hour time. And one of our friends that you may or may not know, but he was went through all that and described it to David Bird. And David Bird says, well, the only problem is you have a SMART goal, not a SMART goal. It's specific, it's measurable, it's achievable, it's totally unrealistic, and you got a time limit. And so, those things are important to do it because I believe that anywhere in life we find ourselves, we can do better. Maybe not as much as we want. We may have to do the little steps. It doesn't matter age, anything, handicapped people. There's just so many stories that people have done it, so why can't you if you're in the same circumstances? So the problem is people accept defeat And Napoleon Hill just had a philosophy that any failure that came to him, and he had failures in a lot of different times, was a temporary setback. And he was learning, what can I learn from this? And how can I do it different to accomplish something? So I'm a big believer in success is not limited to anybody. And it's set up so anybody's belief system works. That's the beauty of it. It doesn't, all these fights over religion and things. And really, I believe the universe is set up so however you believe, good or bad, you make that choice and it's yours.
Right. That's powerful. Let's say somebody believes everything that you've said about prosperity and Napoleon Hill and all of his 13 principles, and they go to conventions and they get all fired up and jacked up, and they do it for a while, and 2 or 3 weeks goes by and they kind of lose that spark and lose that fire and just go back to their old habits, old behaviors. Is there a I want to say trick, but that's probably not the right word, advice that you could give for somebody to really pull themselves up by the bootstraps and really stay on that path, stay on that course to create what they want?
Yes, there is. And it's probably not what people want to hear, but it all starts with a thought. Napoleon Hill starts his book and says, thoughts are things. Thoughts is where things get. People don't understand, in my opinion, how important a thought is. Because thoughts is where ideas come from. Ideas is where dreams and things come. And so it all starts as a thought. And so if we want to change any of that, we have to, as Napoleon Hill told me, if you want your circumstances to change, which we're talking about, you have to change you. See, we want everybody, me included, would like to change my circumstances, but they're not going to change. It's up to me. That's the only thing I can control. So I have to change. So it's how we think. And when you think a thought enough times, it has to express itself as an action. Action repeated over and over become habits. Habits are character. So if we want to change, we have to start there. People want to change habits by discipline. I guarantee you they'll lose every time over time. They have to, because, back in the day when people could smoke in the cockpit, I used to have these long flights over the Pacific, and I just, 2 other people in the cockpit smoking the whole time, and it would really bother me, Not that they smoked, it was just the effects of that closed thing. And so many times people were trying to quit the smoke. And this is very common. They'd say, oh, I wish I could have a cigarette. Well, they're still thinking as a smoker and trying to quit smoking. They need to start thinking as a non-smoker, and then their actions will follow, and then they have the habits, and then they've got it whipped. Because habits we do automatically. We don't even have to think about them. But that's what's hard, is getting to that point. So it's the thinking process that they have to change. And that's a tough thing. The older we get, the more set we are in our ways and our ideas, right or wrong, and all of us wrong. We get wrong information. We make wrong decisions on the information we have, even if it's right. So you're right. Motivation is very temperamental. It's very temporary. You can go to a convention, you come home all worked up, and within a week or two. That's why Napoleon Hill said the number one thing was a burning desire. Burning desire meant it's there if everybody in the world is against me, or it's very negative. Because I've always said, you probably heard me say this before, that I can teach someone everything except desire. And you can motivate people to help them get that desire. If they don't have the desire, it's almost impossible. Now, about half the people who don't have desire, if they do get some of these good self-help books or a guide or somebody to help them, can become where they have somewhat of a desire. But that's where people become self-eliminators. If it's not easy, I don't want it. Right. This is too hard, or I don't want to talk to people. I just want to do the internet. Whatever their excuse is, an excuse doesn't work. We just have to go back and figure out the most efficient way and start thinking and doing that.
Got it. That's great. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, let's move the conversation a little bit more towards a couple of lighter subjects. Let's say you had the ability, Dell, to send everybody around the world a text message tomorrow morning about how they could create more prosperity and abundance. What would your text message say to people?
Well, I'll have to think about that a little while, but I do send a message out every day on my, for the people that follow me. And all it is statements or something I've heard other people make that ties into what we're talking about. It's make it a good day. Be positive. Look for the good things. And most things come by serving, helping others. We had a 20-inch snowstorm night before last. I mean, we get a lot of snow here at times, but usually it's in smaller amounts. And so, I was out shoveling snow, and it's too much for the snow blower. And, I have neighbors that were, husband out of town and different things. And I went and I worked on that for about 4 hours. I'm not trying to pat myself on the back. I was so exhausted. I came in and I never felt better. And most of them, I don't think, knows who did it. Yeah. And that's even better. Because the world is set up to really serve and help others. And so if we can find ways to do that, my good wife used to have us when we were little, we'd take our kids on Thanksgiving about every third year and go work at a shelter where we were serving people who didn't have things. So the kids would realize not everybody has a Thanksgiving like we do. This is, it's nice to have, but be concerned about others. And all my kids do those type of things because maybe it was because we showed them, but just because it makes them feel good. So what it is would be a message of hope. There's hope. There's always hope, no matter where. We just had a dear friend that they just found fast-growing cancer, brain cancer, had the surgery a couple of days ago. Just out of the blue, something just really seemed to happen. And to watch everybody rally around and stuff like that, it just makes you feel good. So that's part of that prosperity, because when you're like that, you're better with people and you're listening instead of just talking and those type of things. So it would be I have a ton of them. So it'd be something on the sun's going to come up tomorrow and you can have a good day, and, along those lines.
Good. I love it. Love it. Okay. Here's a fun question. In the last 5 years, has there been a new belief or behavior that you've adopted that has affected you in a positive way?
Yes, it's I'm glad you asked that. It's kind of a summation of what I've believed all my life, and it's this. I listened to a talk. Never heard of the guy. He was a tennis coach and some other things. How he was helping people, and he pulled this together really for me. The universe is designed, in my opinion, to create the world we want by starting by our thinking and our positive affirmations, whatever it is, until those are realized. And instead of doing that, the human race has pretty much gone to reacting to our emotions, which control our thinking. And so we're doing things in reverse, trying to do shortcuts. So we're letting our emotions take a hold of us. I mean, just look at the world today. People just, they're against people no matter what, nobody is willing to sit down and try to work things out, which is the mastermind principle, by the way, getting focused on the same things. But it's that we can control this with our thinking and going through and controlling our emotions. And what most people are doing is our emotions are controlling our thinking. So everything's about opposition and sadness. So that was, I watched that maybe 3 months ago. I just happened, I don't like to watch TV and so on. I just come down, I flipped on something. I just wanted a break, check on some news or weather. And I went to this channel I hardly ever go to. And there was the end of this talk. I listened to the last 4 or 5 minutes. I've got to find out. And so I searched out where I got that whole talk. And it was just like opened up kind of that thought. And I thought, wow, that's what it is. We're just emotional now. We just in anger and emotions are what control our desires. And so when we visualize something we want, the key, and that's what they helped me do it with sports, was how will you feel when you win the state championship, or you throw the winning touchdown, or you make the basket? Well, it was all crowd's happy, I'm happy. It was wonderful. And that's what draws it. That's what draws people's circumstances to you to accomplish the goal. And we're sending out all these other things, emotional anger and hate things, which is sad.
Right. All right. Okay, here's a fun question for you. Is there an unusual habit or thing that you love?
Habits or a thing that I love?
Is there an unusual habit or a thing that you love?
Yeah, you get really personal, don't you?
We're going behind the curtain. It's okay. You'd be amazed at some of the things I've heard. It's fun.
I love how I feel after I work out. It's hard to get to that point anymore, just time-wise, or even back when I was running marathons. I used to go out and knowing, end in mind, that 6 weeks from now I'm going to run the marathon, I'm going to finish, I'm going to do this amount of time, all that stuff, and I come back tired, aching muscles, and I felt great. And so I found that there is really satisfaction in being uncomfortable, but in accomplish something that was needed, but not necessarily wanted.
Yeah.
So I forced myself, I guess, to do some of the things that today it's more, I hope I get that feeling when I finish. But yeah, that's a habit that I developed a long time ago, is not what I'm getting today out of this. What's it going to do for me when I run the marathon, when I play the game, when I'm on stage, when I'm getting the accolades, doing the tough things today. I guess somebody used to say, doing the things today, so I'll have the things tomorrow that people won't do today,
That's right. That's right. Love it. Love it. Has there been a mantra that you have repeated to yourself over and over again over the years, Del, that kind of keeps you focused and feeling good and everything?
I will, and I'll never give up till I do. Not so much for those words, but the feeling it gives me on whatever it is that I'm focusing on. And that's usually when I go to that is when I'm not getting there. And I also like the mantra that you can't get anywhere in life that I want to get by myself. You have to do it with people. So find people around you that can lift you, or as you lift them, it gets you where you want to go. And so it's that service again. It's that doing for others to help them get there. Zig Ziglar said it best: if you help enough people get where they want to go, you'll get where you want to go.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. Well, Del, I just want to say thank you so much, man, for sharing your wisdom. You've shared so many great principles and philosophies and habits that we can adopt to create the things that we want in our lives. If somebody wants to connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
I'm trying to get rid of my old email, get to a new one, but Facebook's good, or LinkedIn. I don't respond to a lot of LinkedIn. I'll have to be, but Facebook, or I'll get you something, over time here.
And what's your Facebook profile? What's the best one?
Just Del Williams 1, I think it is.
Okay. Facebook.com/Del Williams 1. Appreciate that. All right, my friend. Thank you, Del, so much for being here. And my friend watching this, I know you got a ton of value. You probably want to watch this interview over and over and over again. If you want to see interviews like this and other ones, just go to terrypetrovick.com/mentors. And remember this: you have a choice. Make it a better than terrific day and a prosperous one, because you, yes, you absolutely deserve it. Until next time, bye-bye for now.